the word I would choose is evocative. Bless you. And what I mean by that is this author used flashbacks to pull at the reader's heartstrings. It was actually a nominee for Tearjerker as well. But if you get an opportunity to go back to the webpage and check out the story Awoken, about a father who's lost his child. Through these flashbacks, this parent gets to live both in the past and in the present. And the way the author switches back and forth really demonstrates that father's both pain, but also acceptance of what's going on. So, Ava Powell.
Is that you only really get to hear the names of the people who won the award. And what you never really get to see or hear about, unless I do it right now, is the people who were so close to the cut, so close to getting the tearjerker or the plot twist or the realism award, and that they just fell short slightly from that essay that really made it, right? And so we do want to make some honorable mentions to let you know those people who do stand out, that your writing is good, all right? And it just, in the moment, in this exercise alone, you had someone who just wrote that type of story, so they're just a little bit above, and that doesn't speak badly of your writing. If you say, for example, that J.K. Rowling is a better writer than Rick Riordan, that doesn't mean that Rick Riordan is a terrible writer, all right? Whether you think he is or not is fine. So, with that in mind, I think you have some more mentions from your class, and I have some from mine. There's two people from my class that I really want to talk about, because I read these essays. The first one, the first person I want to mention is Camilla Bishop. Now, your story, Elizabeth, from the get-go, was a story that just spoke to me. It was very like a sort of, I felt emotional, but I feel emotional about everything, to be fair. I loved the way it ended, but I don't want to spoil aspects of the story for people if you go on the rest of it. I believe Elizabeth was one of the first ones I posted when I got the chance, because I was like, this has to go up. All right? So I just want you to know that you're a phenomenal writer. All right? So give her a round of applause. The other person I want to mention is someone who went through something that a lot of my students, I say a lot, sorry, 5 or 6 of my students did this, and then only one of my students actually managed to recover from it. And so, Diego, 5 or 6 of my students wrote a story, the very first draft of their story, that was essentially conceptual plagiarism, right? And if you don't mind, like the opening of your first story that you wrote, that we had to like axe, was basically My Hero Academia, which I think some students don't think I've watched. It's me, what are you talking? All right, but you're not the only person who did, and so I had to have words with those students, and they had a smaller crunch time. They just misunderstood the concept. And so we had to have that conversation. But what you rewrote in such a short period of time. Damn, son. Like, that's all I can say. Like, Diego, if you don't know him, has been a consistently excellent student in my classroom. A consistent sort of, when he may be nervous too sometimes, but when he contributes, it's something that is always something that I value. It's amazing. So, know that you should definitely continue writing, and I want to see more, all right? So, those are my honorable mentions. You guys come up to the video? How's everybody? Big round of applause.
I want to give a shout out to a couple different stories. I had like 3 or 4 stories that are nominated in multiple categories, and on this list I kind of have like top 3 from every category, top 2 or 3. And then definitely one I did want to shout out was Elizabeth. Who was that? Who? That was you? Yeah, I heard you talk about it, but that was just really good. That was a really good story. When it came to most imaginative, you were right there for that. The Escape, Eye of the Storm, Senior Prank was really good. Planting Poppies was right there for descriptive language. Okay. Pump Faith, fantastic story as well. They were just, like you said, man, when you get to a certain level of writing, you're really trying to, it's not the number, it's not 9 or 10, you're talking 10.15 to 10.08. You're talking decimals of difference between stories.
I think it's a similar thinking as well. Like, you guys are going to be sitting here, sitting in promotion on Monday, and every department's going to be thinking they're top student or whatever. But that's such a different, you have no idea as a teacher to like try and pick one. It's such a like mind meld of things. There's so many people who we feel deserve those things, but we're told to pick one. And in the same way with the awards, just pick one. That doesn't mean that your art wasn't good.
And so but just definitely want to give a shout out to those ones before we get to the top-notch award, the best overall story. I have a little story about the best overall story. I'll tell you what, man. So, the best overall story kind of popped up out of nowhere. The person who wrote this story, I read their draft early on, and I was like, oh snap, we're doing some dark stuff. What's going on here? Where is this going to go? Right? And there were a bunch of people whose drafts I read early, and I was like, man, I love that concept. I love that idea. I can't wait to see what you do with it. And then when it came time to publish, that idea dissipated, evaporated, went invisible, ghosted. I think that's what y'all say. And the idea was no more. It was gone. And I was a little disappointed, but at the same time, you know how it is. If you don't give you homework, or in our case, if the student doesn't give you homework, you don't complain. You just give them a 0. But then a new story popped up. And when this story popped up, I was like, wait, I don't remember reading this draft. I've never seen this one before. And my first question was like, who wrote this? Where is this coming from? And it used a narrative technique that we hadn't even studied. A story with, there's a fancy name for it, the journal or something, but like it's a journal. And inside the journal, you follow this scientific experiment that goes horribly wrong and basically leads to a gateway of the mind, which is the title of the story written by Brad Geiger. party. We're glad we're able to put this on for you guys. Thank you very much for your best efforts all the way around, the ones who we got. And as you guys move on into your next grade, just try to hopefully these kind of things stick in your memory.
Right, and I think all of you by now are familiar and maybe slightly annoyed by announcements where Mrs. Slocum just shouts into a mic, keep reading. But what I would say to every single one of you, all of you that where either of us were reading your stories, I want to tell every single one of you, keep freaking writing, all right? Keep going with it because you guys, there is a lot of talent in this room, all right? Give yourselves a round of applause.